Hello, everyone, and welcome to TFYLP episode number 330, recorded Monday, Monday, May 7th, 2019. I am your host, Ron Land, aka Weird Wolf. Along with me this evening is Lucas Bockelman.
Hey.
Anna Pope.
Hello.
And Sean McGinnis.
Greetings.
Greetings from Earth. Let me make sure the chats are all going on the right channels. All right.
Isn't it Tuesday, by the way?
Is it Yeah, I guess it is. I've literally had like 4.5 hours of sleep since yesterday morning. So yeah, it's been a long time. But as such, you're probably wondering, where the hell's my TFYLP microcasters right now? Well, they're here. They're here, but we're doing a TFYLP makeup episode. We weren't able to broadcast last Sunday due to some technical issues regarding XSplit, which is what we use to broadcast. And for some reason, whenever I went to click on broadcast, it would start the YouTube stream, and then everything would freeze. And I think there's something with Skype and XSplit not jiving right now, so it causes some issues here. Nightwing, no, this is not the new night. We're just kind of preempting microcasters because, well, we needed to make this episode up somehow. Microcasters will be back next week at this time, so stay tuned. Somebody's microphone is... I can hear some feedback. I'm hearing on there. I don't know if it's on me or not. It might be me. No, not me.
I muted myself, so it's not me.
But as such, we are doing our very, very first triple cast. We are broadcasting not only to Facebook Live, but also YouTube, and our new channel on Twitch. So if you're watching on Twitch, hello. This is TFYLP's first main episode on Twitch. Trying this out a little bit. However, our Twitch channel will mainly be the new home of TFYLP's Ouch My Wallet, a little spin-off show that we have going. Are you still getting echo, Nightwing? Because I'm not hearing anything. You guys hear any echo?
I do not echo.
I'm not hearing any echo on the Skype, but it could be on the broadcast. I don't know. If you check XSplit, is the inputs on there? Like, are there multiple inputs going in?
The only inputs I have are my microphone and you guys. So I don't see how it could be echoing. All right, he says no. All right. Thanks for the input there. If you're watching live on Facebook, YouTube, or even Twitch, you can comment. The comments should show up here on the video. I've kind of rearranged things. I kind of gave it a new look for episode number 330. Hope you guys like it. As I was saying, TFYLP Microcasters is going to be back next week. This is their normal time slot right now, 10 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. Central. And on Tuesdays, yes. If you love what we do here on TFYLP, you can support us on our Patreon at patreon.com/TFYLP. And if you become a Patreon, you will get the added bonus of extra content in the form of TFYLP After Hours, which we put out at least a couple times a month. So, a lot of great fun on that episode, or on that show too. So check it all out. And thank you all for joining us on this special night and time, kind of advertised, as it were, but I wasn't quite sure this would actually work, so I didn't want to advertise it and it not work, but we're here. Tonight's episode, we're going to be talking about the new Legend scale. Everybody is here has been in on it to some degree or another. The Legend scale seems to be getting really hot lately. I mean, it's almost like the new Masterpiece hot, in my opinion. A lot more people are talking about it. A lot more people are buying it. And let's be frank, like the title of this episode suggests, tiny masterpieces, the new Legends. They're almost mini masterpiece in some ways. And we're going to talk a little bit about that, the history of some of these Legends, both official and unofficial. This is by no means a complete history of the Legend scale or anything. I know Anna's got some prepared material for us. MP is Masterpiece, not Legends. Well, we may beg to differ a little bit, because some of these guys are pretty amazing for their size. So let's delve into the topic. Who wants to go first?
Well, Dron, I was just going to say real quick to hit on your topic as far as like kind of why they're so hot is, Masterpiece is somewhat wrapping up at this point. They're doing a lot of the combiners, but, a lot of the figures have already been done, and I think people are kind of getting bored of it. And so I think that this is fresh new territory that people can do, because, people got out of Chug, people are kind of bored with Masterpiece. Now they're onto Legends. And so we have a lot of companies now that are trying to fill that void and to give us all of our G1 representations in a tiny scale.
Absolutely.
Another excuse to get us to buy everything.
I believe Robert will be joining us here shortly. He just messaged me and said that his raid ended, so he's going to be hopping on. Lucas, while I'm adding him in, you want to continue?
Well, I was going to say, so just to start off, and Anna can supplement. I was just showing these are some of the Hasbro Legends. So they've been doing Legends for a while, and the Hasbro Legends are pretty good. I think that they're some of the better Hasbro figures that we've gotten over the last like 5 years or so. But with these figures, they're small, but they're somewhat lacking. Like the articulation is decent, the characterization is decent. It's pretty good, but we lost Anna.
I think she'll be back here, hopefully.
I'm dealing with my dog.
Oh, gotcha. So yeah, like there's no ankle tilt, there's not waist swivel, like that type of stuff. The stuff that a lot of collectors want to get. So, and a lot of the, starting off, a lot of the third-party Legends, I feel like we're somewhat similar. Like this is one of the first Iron Factory figures. This is their Soundwave that they released. Gosh, I can't remember how many years ago. And it was, it has a lot more paint than the Hasbro figures, but those figures were pretty small. This particular figure doesn't really turn into anything. Like, I don't know. It's not, to me, I don't think it's representative of what Legends is right now. But these were pretty cheap. Like, I think the older Legends figures were like around $20 or so, compared to like a Hasbro Legend that was $10. And then DX9 started kind of putting out their figures. And again, this was like at the $20 price point. It still didn't have a ton of, it has more articulation than the Hasbro figures, but it doesn't have, a lot of the articulation that people are looking for. And it was somewhat of a similar scale to, Hasbro and whatnot too. So that was kind of some of the earlier ones. I think those, gosh, I can't remember how many years ago these have been released now. It's been a few years. But that's some of the earlier ones. I don't know if you want me to keep going.
Yeah, I'm trying to set it back up because when Anna turned her camera off, it messed everything up, and I'm having to redo the thing.
Yeah, it took me away.
Way to go, Anna. Jeez.
Hey,
Uh,
did you want to watch me deal with my beagle?
Sure.
We love animals. Me jumping in the middle, I'm sure didn't help Duran in his getting things set up either.
No. Now, considering how this thing is finicky, Skype is the Windows 10 version of Skype has just recently allowed for NDI input and output, and it's apparently rather buggy, and I think that's what caused it to crash the other day. So we had some minor issues getting the episode started today. But as such, we're all here. Okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, Lucas was just going over all the different legends in a timeline, I believe.
Yeah, so that was kind of some of the older ones. Well, here about, I don't know, maybe it was last year or so, or a couple years ago, Iron Factory started releasing, and DX9 both started releasing figures that were much higher quality, but then also were a little bit higher priced. So you started getting figures like the Starscream that is, a pretty fantastic representation. And so you can really see a difference, like when you're comparing this to the Hasbro one, there's a significant difference between the two of these with the paint, with the articulation and things like that. And so then... And
what's the price difference between those?
Yeah, so, the Hasbro one's $10, and then this guy, I think, was 30 at the time. I think 30 or 35, something like that. And then, yeah, it's really just kind of went up from there where, now you're seeing, the figures now like this New Age Jazz, where I think he's about 35 as well. And so you started seeing companies making these, and then you start getting into like this new Iron Factory Megatron, where this guy is, I think 65 was the US retail, I think, on him. And they, really started kind of, creating a scale. So like the Scorponok, for example, is Legend scale, but it's like essentially the size of a large deluxe or maybe even a Voyager figure. And then, of course, this also is, gosh, I can't remember how much this one is. I think is it like 65 or 70, something like that?
About 70, yeah.
Now, my Lord Scorpion, my Dark Lord Scorpion, which is the Black Zarek version of that, I want to say I gave 60 for it, but it was on clearance at the time. So.
Yeah, that one's gone on clearance, but the original colors one really hasn't.
Now, was the first combiner, was that the Hulky?
I believe so. I believe so.
Yeah.
And that was like, what, 150, I think? I think it still is. Am I correct on that? It was something like that?
I think so. But yeah, and then this guy, I think, the Iron Factory Bruticus, which is a combiner as well.
That thing's gorgeous.
Yeah. Honestly, in my opinion, I think this is one of the best built combiners, like third-party combiners that I've handled. I think that Make Toys Giant, I think was, one of the ones as well. But my biggest complaint with a lot of third-party combiners is over the years they kind of just start, getting the lean back and just not really holding up. But this guy, since he's smaller and all that, he's really held up really well. So,
yeah, those, especially the first round, third-party combiners like Giant and Hercules that most people had. I think they were great for their times, but that's a lot of weight on plastic that over time you just can't do much about it, unfortunately.
So, Sean, what's your thoughts on the new Legend scale?
I like them. I was trying to be good. No, I was trying to hold off from getting to Legends Collection, and then I ended up getting Flipper. And Lucas sold me on a
Flippers
Magic
like the
Square Huffer.
I got the Goldbug version. Yeah.
Yep. And it's just kind of been a downhill slide from there. The Jazz is really cool. Speaking of mini masterpieces, that's whenever I realized that Prowl was a mini masterpiece because he has paint in all the places that the masterpiece actually does. And he has articulation in pretty much all the areas that the masterpiece does.
Well,
and you can pretty much get him in just as many, if not more, poses.
That's one of the things that I kind of wanted to bring out in this is that with the new Legends, and we're talking mainly third party here. You know, the Legends, third party Legends market is really exploding. But you know, used to be Hasbro was pretty much the only ones that put out some Legend scale. I mean, you might get some smaller scale stuff from some third party companies. I know we had the world's smallest from was it Just Toys or Just It Toys or however you say it. I always call it Just Toys, and they were just basically really scaled down versions of the G1 toys, and they were literally that big. I was only able to get Grimlock and Sludge out of those that set, but I loved them. I don't really consider those Legends, though. They were intended to be for the world's smallest, even though they were still quite large for that brand. But they didn't fit within what we consider the modern Legends. Modern Legends, you know, I mean, we got the like Lucas was talking about there. You got this scale here. This is what's considered the Legend scale from Hasbro, and you know, this is not necessarily masterpiece, but it's still, you know, rather detailed and somewhat intricate for what we would expect from a Legend scale figure. Used to be they were very, very basic, just pretty much blown up, you know, kind of like these guys here, I guess. Very, very simple. You know, no legs, or I mean, sorry, no knees, no elbows, no rotating heads. Just pretty much just pull out the feet, flip out the arms, and stand robot. Now, with especially with the third-party Legend scale, you're getting so much more detail. I mean, like I know Sean's not a big fan of it, but I absolutely dig it. This is the Toy World Whiskey Jack, and to me this is like a miniature version of Masterpiece Wheeljack. I mean, he's so clean front and back, and he's got all the articulation that you'd expect from a Masterpiece size figure. It just blows me away what you can get in a small size, and this guy was literally $25. You know, you get a lot of bang for a little buck, you know. And then, like you said, you got Flipper. I got the Gremlin, which is the same mold, just in the Goldbug colors. And this guy is so intricate for such a little tiny figure. But look how nicely he cleans up. And he's so posable. And very accurate to the cartoon model, in my opinion. Yeah, I think they are pretty much mini masterpieces, in my opinion. Now,
y'all keep using that term and it kills me. I'm just going to admit it. Whenever you all call them mini masterpieces, it just wears me out.
It's I guess a comparison type deal, but they're not masterpieces because, you know, they don't have like opening and closing hands, and some of the detail is just not possible on a figure that small. But what they are doing is just amazing. You know, I mean, that's why I'm saying they're almost mini masterpieces.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they have a surprisingly large parts count and surprisingly well detailed. So I mean, to me, they are mini masterpieces, just as the new Hasbro Legends class is like mini deluxes.
A lot
that
of them
makes
are
any
even
sense.
painted, which is
Because
a good point.
back in the day, we had the Legends, and they were crummy. You know, they lacked articulation like that Bumblebee. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they sucked. But nowadays, the Legends are actually a necessity if you're trying to build out a display for characters.
I thought
Because they're not making Bombshell as a deluxe; they're making Bombshell as a Legends.
I like what Hasbro has done with the mainline Legends in that it's not really. I mean, they do have a few examples of that, but of where they take the bigger characters and they put them smaller, but they use that line for characters that are smaller, so they fit in scale with your normal Chug collection.
Yeah.
You know, like the
And that's
Insecticons and the mini bots.
Yeah, that's the really cool feature about it. That's why I'm actually collecting Legends across the board, is because we are getting mini bots as mini bots, and it's really cool.
I was going to bring up in the chat, Matt Baldwin had said that the Legends scale really well with city bots, and I would agree with that. I think that if you technically want scale accurate, like you're not going to be able to get a city bot that's the size of a city. So these guys can actually fit a lot better with either your Hasbro city bots or the third-party ones as well.
Yeah, that's how I display mine. If you look behind me, I have the display of the city bots with my Legends. And I think that's a good segue, because someone was talking about how they may not display as well. You know, if you put them on a shelf, you may not be able to see them as well as you could a nice big masterpiece figure. And I think that in a way, that's kind of a bummer. But in another way, it actually opens you up to much more creative ways to display them, because they're small enough that you can easily make little scenes. You can pose them on your city bots. You could buy that Zeta bar and give them a place to hang out. You can try all sorts of different things. Giving your robots furniture is pretty fantastic if you ask me, but you might have to be a little more creative to make a good display. Just having them all lined up in a row on a shelf doesn't have as much presence as a masterpiece collection might.
I think if you're going to have a deep Legends collection, and you have just kind of normal shelf display, I think you have to get some tiered risers, and you can get cheap ones on eBay, especially if you look for like spice rack organizers. You can find the white ones that are expanding shelves, and you just take them apart, and you can put them in two shelves and line them up. I actually use it for my GoBots display, and it worked out really nice. For that at least.
I was going to say too, I mean, I think that that's something that Anna, touched on, that a lot of us are going through, where, we've gotten to a point with our masterpiece collection where we have so much that they're really standing shoulder to shoulder and all that. And it doesn't really look good. And I don't necessarily know that that's what I want. And so, that's why, I've kind of scaled back my masterpiece collection to just my favorites, but I still want a lot representations, or really nice representations, of those characters. And so I think for me, I think Legends, I'm able to buy something that literally looks like a masterpiece, that looks like a great version of it, that has that articulation that I can put on the shelf. But like for me, I'd much rather, kind of put them all in action poses and actually try to display them with, some type of a thing rather than just shoulder to shoulder.
Yeah, they do that a lot better.
Now Anna, you said in our private group where we were talking about this episode, you were going to prepare some material for us. Did you were you able to get some things put together?
I mean, by preparing material, I really just meant I was going to line up all my Legends beside me and talk about them. But
that's not preparing.
I don't know about anything too formal tonight.
All right,
let me know
there's definitely a few topics we can talk about within Legends.
Well, one thing I would like to talk about is, where do you think the current standard for Legends toys started, in your opinion? Where did they start shifting away from stuff like this into stuff like this? You know, I mean, in your opinion. I'll go with mine. I mean, just to kind of give you an idea. I think back in Dark of the Moon, whenever we started getting some of those legends, or I guess in that time they were calling them Legion class. But some of those toys were just absolutely phenomenal for their size. And Hasbro was putting those out. I remember the what was it, the wind charger that they had that was so sought after. I know I wound up having to get one from the UK because they were so hard to get here in the US. And it was really, really well done for a figure its size. I believe the sea spray that they had, I think in that line was really well done. There were several others that stood out, but I don't want to sit here and just be let's list off toys episode, or hey, let's show off stuff. Let's talk more about the substance of the actual, lines and the toys, and in my opinion, it really started back with Dark of the Moon legends, or legions, as I believe they were called then. But what do you guys think? I mean, did you really start taking notice to Legends figures?
I'll give my 2 cents.
Okay.
My 2 cents is that for me, Legends were not good enough to merit the money. Honestly, until like a year ago when Magic Square got started, and then New Age got started after that, Legends weren't neat enough looking for me. They didn't quite do what I wanted in a figure until we hit that point, which is relatively recent. I know that Iron Factory did figures before that, and DX9 did figures before that. And both of them are, I have a few of them in my collection now. They're both good, but they don't do what I want Legends figures to do, which is be very good to play with and then look really cool posed. And I feel like, Iron Factory does about half of that, DX9 does the other half. And I just wasn't happy until Magic Square got started. And then I've been far too happy since then.
I think that it actually started about the time that DX9 released their Mitron. Is that the name of the figure? The Megatron, the Legends figure. That it was essentially a downscaled version of their masterpiece Megatron. Because that figure was one of the first third-party ones that was significantly more expensive. I think at the time, I believe it was like $50 or something like that. And so it was somewhat of a risk for them to put out an expensive figure like that. But it ended up selling pretty well. And so I think at that point they resized a lot of their figures to a slightly larger scale. And Iron Factory kind of followed suit as well, to where they started releasing a larger scale as well, and more intricate. And so then they've kind of been pumping the price up. But I think it was one of those things where they were kind of started dipping their toe in the water, because I'm sure they weren't sure whether or not people would actually spend the money on Legends figures. But it seems like that, now because of that, it's kind of snowballed, and there's been more and more of a following of those. Like Annette said, it's kind of the same way with me, that I got into Legends like over a year ago. I sold them all off because I was like, these aren't good enough. And then now that when Magic Square started releasing their stuff, that was kind of my jumping on point again as well, to where I've pretty much bought all the Magic Square stuff. I've started getting, New Age, and then New Age is a little bit different because they kind of started downscaling some of the figures and releasing some of these mini bots that are, smaller than some of these other ones, but then they actually scale pretty well, like with the blaster. And so, yeah, I think right now, in my opinion, the main players, are either Magic Square, New Age, and Iron Factory. That those are kind of the main ones. And a lot of them have different styles a little bit, to where, you can kind of mix and match them, but a lot of them, you kind of have to have your own. You have to have an Iron Factory collection. You have to have a separate Magic Square and a separate New Age Because they don't 100% go together.
They all look great together. I disagree.
Rob's video froze, and it looks like he's asleep.
Test. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. It's just your video's frozen. You look like this.
Let me turn it off and back on real quick.
No, that'll screw up the video.
Shit. Sorry, I already did it. Sorry.
Now there's two of me on here.
Oh yeah, I agree with Lucas as far as the aesthetics. Like they're all about the same size, so you can pair them together, but they all have like a kind of different take on the Legends or a different series. Like I'd say the New Age is very kind of cartoon accurate. The Iron Factory is kind of like more of a Cybertronian type style, more boxy, more sharp, kind of like a comic book look almost. And then the Magic Square. Hold on, I think I'm gonna be sick. The Magic Square, yeah, they don't do it for me. they're a little too lanky. I mean, I guess you could say that they're more of like a G1 inspired.
Well,
They're
the
so
Magic Square, they tend to have more the animation model aesthetic, whereas
Okay.
I think the New Age, they have more. That's another reason why I think these are more mini masterpiece, because we've talked about it here on the show before. Masterpiece up until probably Shockwave, the official Masterpiece, they were a very fine meld between toy aesthetic and cartoon aesthetic. They had realistic alt modes, yet their robot modes were heavily inspired by the cartoon, but they still had realistic detailing. And I use Masterpiece Wheeljack, not the Plus version, but the first version, as an example of that. He still had all that realistic detailing that he had in car mode, but he still looked a lot like his cartoon model. And I think that's what the New Age aesthetic aims for right now. More of a meld between those two. And then you've got like Unique Toys that does the Headmaster size, or the Headmasters and the Legend size, and they also shoot for more of a toony aesthetic, like the Magic Square. I think these fit in better with the Magic Squares, and not just size but also aesthetic. But where you put them next to these guys, and even though the size they look really good, the aesthetic is off. So, but you even get that in Generation 1 toys. So if you really go back, the 84, 85, and some of the 86 toys, some of them really doesn't look right if you put them next to like the later G1 toys. Completely different aesthetic.
The Diaclone toys are obviously very different from like the Fluoro Dairy, or however you pronounce the name. Those designs, like it's a very obvious shift. And then that's another really obvious shift once it died in the US and it became like, just a car running things, especially, once you got into like, some later era Victory and Zone designs. I think
And I think
them all not fitting together is consistent.
I think that's one of the things that I loved about RID, is it had different toys from many different toy lines that, it didn't matter what aesthetic it had. I mean, you had the Beast Wars aesthetic with some toys, the Generation 2, you had the G1, some of the, and completely new molds, like the Carr Brothers and everything. That was another aesthetic. And yet they were all considered part of the same line. It's just weird. So will we start seeing that in new third-party toys like this new Legend scale? Who knows? And we kind of, as a fandom, have rolled with it as it happened. I don't prefer it to be that way, but You really have no choice. I mean, Rob, you said that you had some dissenting opinions about Legends.
Yeah, that's the reason why, I was disappointed I wasn't going to be able to make Sunday's show, and why I asked if I could join, even though a cast of 4 is already enough, But I did want to, I don't know, be a little bit on the other side of the coin. And just a couple things out of the way. Like, I'm not shitting on anybody's opinions. Like what you like. I don't care. It doesn't affect me.
Well,
the more the merrier.
You can shit on this guy, the Disguiser Z Blue Streak. This thing was an utter piece of shit. I did not care for this guy.
Take your word on it. And I don't want anybody else to think that I hate Legends, Scale, or any of that either. I mean, I have a couple. I bought the. I don't want them for my G1 representations, of any sort. But I like. I can't even remember the brand. I'm sure Anna can tell me. The Bug Bite, the little Bug Bite, and I'm getting the Blue Cosmos. Like, I enjoy those. Yeah, that guy. I enjoy getting, as that line continues on. Like the old eHobby recolor set / bot concept kind of colors is kind of cool. That Bruticus, I think, looks awesome, but I'm gonna wait until they repaint it into Ruination or something like that. I think that'll be fun to pick up with that. But
when are we ever going to get a Battle Gaia or something like that? And these companies never do it. The mold's there.
So Robert, I do want to mention Iron Factory did actually repaint
Yeah.
Bruticus into Ruination. So
that's right, they did. I think
Yeah.
And it's a box set.
that's
out
right.
there
I remember
for you.
I was looking at not that I'm a big knockoff proponent, but I remember it was pretty expensive for the set, and I knew Mech Fans Toys tends to knock things off later and do a set, and I think I was looking at that, and then my budget money went elsewhere at the time. But to go ahead and quit postponing, be Mr. Negative, I think Legends are a fad. I think they're going to burn hot, and it's going to die away pretty quick, and a couple years we'll see lots of Legends lots of people that and I don't even think there's anything wrong with that. Like, I got some of my friends that I talk about, they rent their toys, they don't buy them. They'll buy it and they'll love it for like a few months and then they get rid of it. And like the one friend I'm thinking of in particular, now I mean he has a very small collection these days. He used to have everything like 10 years ago. These days he keeps like maybe 20, 30 toys. And he kind of tends to constantly round robin as he gets tired of what he has, which honestly I think it's healthy to a degree. But I don't think the Legends collections are going to stand the test of time. I think they came out, they're definitely doing some cool designs. They put a lot out at once. Masterpiece, as y'all have mentioned, like I still love Masterpiece. I love every bit of it, but it's definitely like the milkable G1 stuff is on a decline, and every time a line starts hitting the end of the milkable G1 stuff, they got to find something new to do with G1. I mean, look at the Generations line with the Combiner Wars and Titans Returns and Power of the Primes. That trilogy ended, so what do? Start a War for Cybertron series so we can milk G1 again. And
next there'll be an animated aesthetic, like Transformers animated, but it'll all be G1 characters. Crap! I've said it, so it's gonna happen.
I don't know. But yeah, so I think that's gonna happen with Legends. It's something new. It's the characters everybody loves. They're doing cool designs, but I think a lot of people are gonna shuffle off a lot of it in a few years once that G1 gets milked again, and then people are like, eh.
Well, if you really think about it, though, every Transformer line typically kind of goes through a phase. Some longer than others.
I mean, everything.
I mean,
because it's new and it's hot. And
yeah.
look past the
Well, I
flaws,
mean,
that's something
and I'll look at classics as a great example. It went for a number of years, and it started out kind of hot, then it cooled off, and then it got super hot. And then it cooled off again, and then it kind of got a little hotter again as like the Generations Thrilling 30 came out. A lot of people were going back and say, "Oh, well, this classic toy fits with these a lot better. This classic toy does too." They started getting a little hotter then, and then everybody's like, you know what, screw it, let's go Masterpiece, and they dump those collections. I mean, that's a good example. It happens a lot, even in official toys, unofficial toys. And we've said it many times here on the show. If you collect for an investment, you're doing it for the wrong reasons. I mean, you might make money if you sell some, but for the most part,
Better off getting a job.
You're better off getting a job. Yeah.
I think it's a fad that's going to die off pretty hard, pretty soon. Whereas, like, I know some people, like Lucas, are like, well, you know what? I don't really want everything Masterpiece anymore, and I know you've done the same as well, Duran. But I think the Masterpiece line as a whole, something like that, is going to stand the test of time. Like, if you graft it, I think Masterpieces are going to up and then like kind of slow down. I think the Legends is going to be a short-lived hill. Mm-hmm. I mean, and that's just me prediction. And part of that, though, is, to me, this goes all the way back to what you mentioned earlier, Duran, is World's Smallest. When that came out in Japan, people were going nuts for it here. And Hasbro at the time was like apologizing to collectors because like, we can't import these. They are choking hazards out the wazoo. We cannot get you these toys. And like the Chase figures went for so much on eBay, hundreds of dollars for those.
And they were literally the size of your thumbnail. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I still have some of mine, like just a few of them. But it's like, and then that raw G1 died out really quick. And Hasbro's response to that was the Legends class. Whatever toys they put out at that time was a long time ago. Mm-hmm. It was obviously nothing like what we're getting today from third-party Legends, of course. 15 years later, you'd expect it. But I think, World's Smallest died out. The old Cyberverse and Legion classes and all those have died out. And I think these are going to do the same. I mean, again, I don't knock anybody enjoying what they enjoy. So
I want to touch on that just a little bit because I do agree with you that I think some of the figures, like I know that New Age has reissued their Bumblebee. I think a couple times, and I think some of those companies have done reissues. But I do want to say, like, Iron Factory, to my knowledge, I don't think has done any reissues. Like, there'll be some times where they will like re-release a mold, like like if it sells out immediately, they may do another run immediately. But they have not re-released figures, and because of that, figures have actually went up quite a bit. Like it's impossible to find some of the earlier figures. Like this Starscream figure right here is going for like $150 right now. Like this was a $30-some figure, but nobody else is releasing a Starscream right now. This is like no one else is doing like this. So if you're collecting Iron Factory, you got to have it. People are paying $100. Like I see it in the groups or whatever, that it's kind of like the fans toys tax, where they are, So I think that some of these Iron Factory, like, it depends on the character, obviously. Like there's some ones like,
there's still only one Devastator, which is DX9 Hulky. That's still at like 150.
It's not really that great either compared to the Iron Factory Bruticus.
Right. I think it depends on the figure, though, too. I think the Iron Factory has a really strong following. And so I think that a lot of their figures have held value. And again, since they haven't been, re-releasing it. So I think that this guy.
And that's a great looking figure. Don't get me wrong. That looks awesome.
When Magic Square releases their Starscream, like, I'm sure that you'll be able to, this guy's probably not going to be 150 at that point, potentially. I know the DX9 Starscream is the same way. Like, that thing's long gone too. And so the only figures that you can get some knockoffs of those guys. But if you want a Starscream that's Legend size, you gotta, you're gonna have to get this guy. You're gonna have to get DX9. You're gonna have to pay a premium. So I do think that it seems like they've been a little bit better. Like, to me, I feel like a lot of the Masterpiece figures have not held value, and the reason they haven't is because every time that they get scarce, like, Takara re-releases it. And so that's, it's kind of just supply and demand that Takara is keeping up with supply, and, great for them. But if you're trying to sell the figure secondhand, it's not great for you.
I want to chime in now. I do think that as much as I am probably like the token person in here who got into Legends, the strongest first, and is sticking with it, and is honestly thinking about changing a lot of her collection over to Legends just because I like it better than pretty much every other aesthetic. I honestly do agree with Rob. I do think that it probably is a phase for Legends to be like it is right now, where everybody's collecting it. Where, we have the people who primarily collect other things. Like, Duran has a very impressive masterpiece collection all around his room. And Lucas is very into Chug most of the time. I think that a lot of that's going to die out, where everyone is into it. Probably in the next year or so. But I do think that it'll stick around for people who do prefer it, at least as a kind of fringe, like maybe slower releases, instead of getting 20 some odd releases of the Magic Square / New Age quality figures a year. We'll get a few, like it kind of used to be. And I think that'll keep going. I do think the big fat will die because I think that people will do what someone I know did a few months ago and kind of look at them and say, where do these go in my collection? They're about as fun to play with as Chug Deluxes. They're not quite as premium looking on my shelf as Masterpiece figures, but they're nice looking and they're kind of small in a lot of ways. So I think that people will, they'll back out and be like, well, actually, I just want to make a display. I'm going to buy Masterpiece. Or actually, I just want to play with my toys. I'm going to play with Chug. Because Iron Factory toys are not fun to play with. No one's going to change my mind on that. The New Age and Magic Square are fun to play with.
Somebody needs to make that meme and put Anna's face on it. Guys, change my mind.
So is Iron Factory the fans' toys of the Legends worlds as far as transformations go?
The tolerances aren't that great sometimes. I know
they're really tight.
Yeah, I know the Black Zarek that I have. I got to be really careful because there's some parts on it. If you push it a little too far, it feels like it's going to snap, really. And they even use they do the big no-no of using some translucent plastics on some hinges. That bothers me. But and as, on a side note, here it is, almost 11 p.m. and I got my work just tried calling me in for tomorrow.
So I think another reason we're seeing the Legends blow up the way it did, and the reason that everybody but Anna is referring to some of them as mini masterpieces. I think they're a direct response to what is going on in the Masterpiece line. Not only that it's about dried up the G1 well for at least the main popular characters, but that the Masterpiece cost from Takara has, the past couple of years, they didn't do any new G1 figures for a year, and then when they announced something, the cost went through the roof. And I think it's a response both into, we need to produce something that's affordable because people don't want to be dropping $400 every toy. And they said, how can we do that with Optimus Prime and Jazz and whoever again? We'll do Legends, and we'll have that quality with it.
One of the things I think of too, that may be a counter to your proposition that it's a short-term fad, is that these people like myself that has these city bots. Eventually I'm going to be in a bigger place, or I'm going to have a bigger display room, and I want to be able to have my dream is to have like a diorama with these city bots laid out in city mode, and have these legend scale guys in like a battle scene around them, and these are like the perfect size for the city bots, and I think they scale so well with it. And, scale is not something we're used to in Transformers. Let's be honest. It's not, hey, well, Astrotrain hauls Decepticons in his ass, but yet he stands next to most of them and he's shorter than some of them,
Bigger on the inside. They're just TARDISes.
He's a TARDIS, yeah. Sean?
So would you display them with your Masterpiece city bots, in which we only have Omega Supreme from third party, or would you display them with the Chug guys? Let's pretend we had Masterpiece all city bots.
I think some of these, like especially like the new age guys, they would look well next to, say, the Fans Toys Terminus Giganticus. Because they have a similar aesthetic. They have that toon look, but also, they go for that. As I mentioned earlier, that amalgamation of toon toy aesthetic. I think they would work well. But in general, I think Chug, I'd lean more toward the Chug guys, like the Titan Returns Trypticon, Metroplex, such.
I think that,
Yeah.
like, currently I have mine displayed with the retail Titans, but I do think that the larger ones kind of make the retail figures look sort of bad on the detail level. Like, having your Iron Factory War Giant, or having, this version of Omegas up there with them, kind of just like, these things are more detailed than they are in some ways, at least in paint apps and coloration. It just kind of looks weird considering you have these giant figures that are a little less detailed. So I honestly think I would prefer to have the Masterpiece City Bots. I just, the few that are out I don't want to pay for, and these are perfectly good figures, the ones I have. So I just stick with it.
The one thing I'll say too is like, I feel like with it being, when you say it's a phase, the one thing that I think that sets it apart a little bit from Masterpieces is like with some of these repaints, I think that because of the price, I think that more people are willing to go ahead and get some of these repaints on figures that they wouldn't otherwise. And so, like, for example, like I know you had mentioned, Robert, that the GoBots figures that you're going to do, and like some of the Bug Bite. So those are kind of getting you. And I know that Anna collects some of those as well. And I think that, for a lot of us, some of these kind of weird one-off characters like Takara or Hasbro may or may not do them in chug form. And so, for us, like if I want to get a twin cast, or if I want to get, just whatever, that a lot of times I can pick up a repaint of this Legends figure. Okay, I've got that character in my collection now. I only had to spend $30 or whatever. I didn't have to spend $200 on some, the Masterpiece repaint of it, and I don't have the space to, for that repaint or whatever too. So I do think from that standpoint that I think the Legends may stick around longer than, kind of what we think. Because they can do some of those kind of weird characters and take a risk, and hey, it's only a $30 figure. It's not a, like a third party is not going to take a risk on like the Omnibots, I think would be a good example. Or I know Iron Factory is doing repaints of, gosh, I'm trying to remember, but there's a, who are they doing? I can't remember. But anyway, like some of these repaints that we've seen or whatever, like the companies are not going to want to do those at an expensive figure.
Well, I don't disagree with you. Transbot just like 2 days ago announced their blue version of their Cosmos of Klaatu, which is an excellent figure. I mean, that said, I don't need a Masterpiece GoBots homage. I'm very happy with the Legend scale in that because of scale issues and price, honestly. Like, even though that figure wasn't expensive comparatively.
Is it DX9 that announced a Legend scale Minosaur? They're starting
Magic Square.
Was it Magic Square?
Magic
okay.
Square.
And
Yeah,
it looks
a while ago.
Well, I mean, it seems like I've seen some CGI renders, and it almost looks like the mini X-Transbox DX9 guys that we're getting in the Masterpiece scale. It's like, holy crap, Sean, you've been kind of quiet. Let's hear from you.
Yeah, I've been trying to get a word in, but it's hard.
Well, that's why we got 5 people here. So
to circle back to what Anna said about 50 minutes ago with the about the you guys are talking about how the Legends don't have legs and they're gonna fall on their face. I think what you talked about as far as they're fun like Chug and they are detailed like Masterpiece-ish, kind of. I think that's exactly in the niche that they fall in as far as they will have legs, because a lot of people don't want to spend 2 hours trying to transform Road King. And it's
Like
a lot
you
of
were
fun to
before
flip
the
a
air.
Chug. Yeah. It's a lot of fun to flip a Chug character back and forth within, just a few minutes. And I think these little, new age guys in particular, I think they fall right in that category as far as, the fun factor being, quick transformations and they look accurate. I think they will. I think they will have legs, and they will. They will go on at least until they complete the entire series. Because I think that the quickest way that we're going to get a certain size collection of all the characters will be Legends, because it's affordable and they're pumping them out pretty quick.
Well, I mean,
We'll have to revisit in a year or two.
my thing is like, I can buy $150 toy, and I can feel comfortable with it, but at the same time, it's like with anything, you shell out that much money on something, you really don't want to pay that much. You don't want to pay that much. So there's that aspect of remorse whenever you pay for any toy. I mean the Fans Toys Dinobots, the Fans Toys Omega, very expensive bots. I didn't want to pay as much as I paid for them, but I really wanted them. That being said, I can go on and get these guys $25-$30 a pop, and yeah, I mean it's a lot of money for a small figure, but I mean I don't feel
the engineering and details there.
Yeah, the engineering and details there, and I don't feel the guilt. I mean, I can blow $30 on a single toy, and it's not going to break me, which is why I've been getting into the studio series. I mean, they got some great Legends or not Legends, but Voyager sized toys that are really good. The deluxes, for the most part, are really good. And I don't feel as guilty whenever I get one of those. But whenever you start creeping that price up and up and up and up, the more I'm less willing to shell that price out. I will, but I'm less willing to. These are, to me, a Legends scale figure is more of an impulse buy. It's if they were to put these at a checkout stand, I'd be highly, inclined to buy one.
It's part of that impulse buy is another reason I think that we're going to see people, getting rid of them later on, because things you buy on impulse generally, and that are easier to buy and accumulate, you care about less when time goes on. But again, my guess is, we'll see. Right now, I mean, I think it's cool that people have more stuff to buy that they enjoy. It's always good for the hobby. So.
Well, and I think the other thing too is we have hit a little bit of a dry spell, just with the high end collections, and so this is kind of filling that niche for a lot of people that they're like, oh crap, I've run out of stuff to buy, unless you're getting a Road King or something. By Fans Toys, but
yeah, so Takara slowed down G1 MPs to a snail's pace, and then third party had a chance to really fill in the gap. And what they do? Let's all do the same combiner and step on each other. Thanks, guys. Thanks.
Right.
I have to say that I'm really hoping that whether or not this lasts as a big fad or whatever, that we get all the combiners. Because I really think that this scale is a good place to put combiners. Because to be honest, like these aren't a whole lot smaller, and honestly, they're about the same size as the actual G1 combiners were. And the thing that like all the combiners that are coming out seems to lack is stability. And the Iron Factory War Giant definitely does not lack stability. My version of Hulky is like 3 knockoffs down the line, but it also doesn't lack stability, right? Like they're very stable combiners of multiple figures that stay together, and they're even like Combiner Wars is okay stable, especially when you talk about Devastator specifically, but the deluxe size figures were okay stable, but these things are really stable, really sturdy, and they come out to be about the same size as the G1 combiners, so it all kind of makes sense that they really work. So I'm really hoping we get all of them in combiners before the fad dries up or before companies raise their prices to $100 a figure or whatever happens to ruin this for me.
Yeah, but I'm weird in that what I do like in really small figures are small figures that you make even smaller, like the mini bots in Legend scale, as well as combiners. Like I still have Kabaya Fort Max because I think he's a huge figure and now he's small. And then I have like a knockoff Devastator that is like this tall or whatever that I enjoy.
Yeah,
bring
I
the
would.
repaints.
I was going to say, I would really love to see as many combiners as possible as well in Legends. And really just because, again,
Be careful what you ask for.
So, I think Devastator, like that Toy World Devastator, is a great figure, but it's like, I don't want to it's like, how many combiners do we have? I don't have the space for all of those in masterpiece scale, like in my collection. I just don't. And the same thing with, whatever it may be. And so I think that if I can get really great representations of these figures, like in this size, I mean,
I wish some of the third parties, when they're starting a new line or so, I wish they would jump towards the more obscure things to start off. Like what's going to happen is, we're going to get like, Defensor and Minosaur and like some of the A-lister guys out, and then like people are going to be like dying of thirst, and hopefully maybe will they get to Piranacon or Abominus or Predaking, like those guys. Or those tend to come out at the end when there's a lot less competition and a lot less drive.
Well, and speaking of Monstructor, in the Legend scale, it would be so much easier to have, the fully detailed, fully articulated Legend scale bots, and have a shell that comes with it that doesn't take up half a room like the Fans Project guys.
It would be G1 size is what it would be.
Yeah.
Right.
Some people don't realize that Monstructor's he's super tiny, as is Dino King, of course, but.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons back in the day, whenever I was trying to finish up my G1 collection, I almost bought a Monstructor. And, around the time I had discovered GPS, I'd bought a G2 Electro, I believe it was, the gold guy, and he
You bought a bag of dust?
I bought a bag of dust, and that was my first lesson on GPS. And the more I researched it, I had not yet bought a Monstructor. And then I read about Slog. I'm like, and at that time, even back, in the early to mid 2000s, Monstructor was $200 to $300, and now he's pushing, even more, depending on where you look. So I'm not going to pay that kind of price, not unless like they're like this guy here, have a Chinese version that's not made with the GPS. That would be the only way I do it. And I am not aware if there was a Chinese version of Slog.
I don't know. Mine's sitting on the shelf. It survived the reorg, and I just don't touch it.
Just go.
Yeah, I know. I lost. I had 2 or 3 breakages reworking my toy room over the last year, and some of it was new. Like the 10th anniversary Dinobot. He was one of the casualties. Just, happens.
Yeah. Nightwing says he finds it insulting that those of you have been in the MP from the beginning feel because you have almost a complete line, it is time to quit making the MP size figures. I don't have 3/4 of them. I mean, I really don't.
I don't know.
And I don't hope they stop making them. I don't. I hope they continue to make them, and I'll continue to buy them the ones that I like. But I am not a completionist by any means. I used to be a long, long, long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. But I don't anymore. I'm a lot more choosy now than I was. And as a matter of fact, I'm probably going to unload even more masterpieces here soon, and get it down to just a few.
So
I've been in the
I
NP
was
line
just
since the beginning, and I would just note that I wasn't saying that they should quit making them. I'm saying they are slowing down what they're making.
Yeah.
One is an observation of fact.
We have no control over how many
Yeah.
they pump out.
I mean, I love the crap out of Masterpiece, but I can accept that the first string characters are done for the most part. If Takara hasn't done it, third party has, and I know that it's obvious Takara is slowing down what they're doing because of it. For me, I wish they would do every single toy in G1 in Masterpiece scale. I would love it. I'd buy every one of them. I just try to be real about it as well.
Yeah.
So I was just gonna say, for me, like I'm in a lot of different lines. Like I collect Chug, I collect G1. I mean, I collect like everything, right? And so that when I say, for me, I can't really be into everything, and I can't be into all the masterpieces. So I'm kind of like drawn where I'm choosy. But I will say that I think that a lot of the figures that people that the companies have released recently have been a huge upgrade over what they've done previously. Like so, the Make Toys Starscream, for example, is just so much better than the Takara one, just because the Takara one was released years and years ago, and the Make Toys, they kind of had the benefit of the new engineering. So for me, I think that by scaling my collection down, and then I like when they release a new Optimus Prime that's coming out, I can be excited about it because I don't, it's not just another character on my shelf. It's a really cool, figure. And like, I'm excited for the Bumblebee, coming out too, just because I want to see what new engineering that they have, that they didn't have previously. So, I mean, I have enjoyed, what has come out last year. It's just, I can't buy all of it.
I'm super excited for Magic Square's Light of Justice. I mean, it's like they took
Who is that?
They basically took their Light of Freedom, the masterpiece size, and shrunk it down to legend scale.
Who is that?
Magic Square. It's Prime. It's
Prime.
It's animation Optimus Prime, animation G1 animation Optimus Prime, and it looks phenomenal. I mean, it literally looks like they took the full size figure and just went, which they might have, of course they're going to have to simplify some things, like make the articulated hands and everything. They just make them just the C grip, I guess that's what you call it, the C grip hands. So
before we wrap, I did want to just a hypothesis question out there for you guys. Do you think somebody will make a Beast Wars Legends figure? Because I think that's the next place to go after.
There are already some on the way.
Are they? Oh, that's right. We did see the gray prototypes, didn't we, of like Rat Trap?
There's right. Rat Trap, and I believe a Transmetal 2 or Transmetal Megatron already.
Yep.
Yeah. So
they're
on their way.
Black Arachnia too.
So they are coming. So that's really awesome. So it's time to wrap up here, and I kind of want to get everybody's final thoughts on things. Sean.
I believe that was my overall thought. Was just I think it'll survive, and it kind of blends the best of both worlds for me. So I mean that's why I like it, and the price isn't too bad.
Anna.
My final thought is that I'm honestly happier with my collecting than I've ever been because of these Legends figures. Like I'm really enjoying it a lot more, and I think it's helped me find the niche that I like, which is figures that still look good on display but are actually fun to take off the shelf, because I actually mess with my figures quite often. So, I'm really hoping that this goes on and that these companies keep trying, and that I get more Magic Squares soon because I miss them, because it's been months since we've got our last release from them. I'm having Magic Square withdrawal.
Well, who's sharing here now?
I am. I thought I'd share a quick image, but it doesn't seem to be working.
No. Well, it's it's kind of jacking with the video over here. So.
Oh, sorry. The colored image of Masterpiece Black Arachne just came out.
Ah,
Nice.
that's what that was.
But Lucas, I think it's your turn.
So I just want to say, I kind of hit some burnout myself with collecting like over the last year, and I think that really some of these Legends figures like New Age have kind of reignited my passion, for collecting, because it's something new. It's something to where it really impresses me. I mean, I think that's the main thing, that when I'm collecting this stuff, I want them to do stuff I didn't think could be done. And a lot of Masterpiece, covered a lot of that for me through the years, where you have that masterpiece moment, quote unquote. And a Legends, a lot of that, is kind of hit for me, where some of these Magic Square or some of these New Age, where I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe they did the transformation like that. Besides the fact that you're like, how did they get an ab crunch in there? How did they get all this articulation in a figure this small?
Insane for the size.
Yeah. And if you look at the New Age, I mean, this guy looks almost exactly like, if you put him up next to the Make Toys version, it looks really, really close, but it's, a quarter the size. And so, I mean, I think for me, they've just impressed me and kind of reignited my collecting a little bit, and have at least kind of staved the burn off for a little bit.
Robert?
Sorry, I don't think I really have too much to add. For me, it's a side thing. I'll pick up the odd thing here and there. Like I saw Anna showed the not Slipstream. I have that one as well. I enjoy the oddball repaints. I think it's cool for that. Be curious to see where it is in a year or two.
It'll be interesting. We'd love to hear the viewers and the listeners' thoughts on the new Legends that are out. Not just third party, but official. I mean, some of the we didn't even really touch on the modern official ones. Like with the Micromasters and the in the official line. Some of those guys are amazing. The later lines of the Prime Wars stuff had some really great ones. The Battle Trap, even though individually they were kind of derpy, I mean, they still formed a really neat deluxe size figure, but it's essentially two Legend size figures together as a duocon. That was really, really awesome. The clones, those were really well done, in my opinion. And the Legends Cosmos / Scrounge, I love that mold. Great stuff from the official side of things too. But we'd love to hear your thoughts on these things. We have a Twitter account, so you can follow us on Twitter at TFYLP. That's usually where the first bit of information comes out. If I want to say something really quick regarding the show, show notes, if we're having technical issues, I will mention it on Twitter first, because it's quick and easy, and cheap and easy like me. We're talking about cheap and easy, so follow us on there, and please interact. We got a Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/TFYLP. That's where we talk not just about the show, but anything Transformers and third party related. And of course, follow us on our Facebook page, facebook.com/TFTalk. And it's some really current information that's up there. We broadcast the show live weekly on there. Of course, you got TFYLP Microcasters, which normally is airing right now on the Facebook page, and now our new Twitch account at twitch.tv/TFYLP. You'll find Ouch My Wallet there, and After Hours is on our Patreon. So all kinds of TFYLP content for you to be able to check out. And hope you like it and subscribe no matter where you ingest this, whether it be iTunes, Google Play, YouTube, whatever. Thank everybody for your involvement tonight on the YouTube. I think I might have screwed up with the Facebook and the Twitch comment thing. I don't know if I had it connected to the chat just right. But you know, had to reinstall XSplit and get it going again, and I might not have connected everything right. So forgive us for having a few technical difficulties and some awkwardness at the beginning. But I think we got rolling pretty good and had some good discussion here. Thank you all for joining us this week. We'll see you next time on TFYLP, normal time, noon on Sundays on YouTube, Facebook Live, and now on Twitch. Hope to see you then, and see you next time. Good night, everybody.